Okay, we're going to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuffs. I have a really cool review for you guys from the brand Baltany. They were founded back in 2010, and their mission is pretty simple. Redesign classic, iconic timepieces using the latest watchmaking technology. Their goal is to create the most historically accurate homages ever, while also maintaining the spirit of the original iconic timepieces along with their own kind of modern interpretations. Now, in terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this a dress watch. Some key common characteristics in the language, you're looking for something within this space. Of course, you're going to want that relatively clean and minimal design in a modestly sized package. This is their retro American 1921 in the salmon dial colorway, and it's an homage to Vacheron's Art Deco classic, the American 1921, but of course at a much more attainable price point. And in this particular salmon dial iteration, it also adds a nice punch of pizzazz with its use of color. You can get these for $169 direct from Baltany, and I'm again impressed with their releases. I've reviewed a couple of their watches, and they keep coming out with stuff that it's just a little bit different than what else is out there. Of course, they're all inspired by other models, but at the same time, they're kind of being pretty selective in terms of which models they're choosing to honor and what types of small changes that they make. And I think they've done a pretty good job thus far. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys, so I'm sure some of you, most of you have already noticed that the signature feature here is going to be this dial and how it is offset and canted. Check that out. So, of course, that is not something that they created, but they did kind of change the way that it is offset if you compare it to the original Vacheron. Now, in terms of the dimensions, 38 millimeters across in diameter, 10.3 millimeters thick, and 44.1 millimeters lug to lug, stainless steel, all high polished, including that case back. We can give it a quick little wipe here, but it's just going to get more fingerprints, but why not? Check it out. Very clean. You can see it's the camera's wanting to focus on the reflection. It is so well polished. There we go. Let's look at the etching there. So fully polished, very nice. You do get, of course, this nice bezel-less design here, so you're going to be getting a lot of real estate taken up by that very cool dial. So I'll even hold it at a little bit of an angle just so orientation helps. I will say one thing that is a bit confusing is that the 60-second sub-seconds there is still upright. It actually is the standard way, lug to lug there, end to end on the watch, so that can be a little confusing when you're canting it this way and then you're waiting for the 60 to come around. Not that you're going to be doing any serious level of timing with this watch or a watch even like this, but one thing to definitely consider in terms of just a little bit of your own little attention to detail and what kind of could throw you off. Now, the crystal is a sapphire with double dome there, so you can see it's not super domed, but you know what, it's domed on the under and the outer, so when you do get it at a very harsh angle, it remains quite legible, which is very nice. You can see there a lot of great details. This dial is really stand out, guys. Just breathe that in for a bit. Now, the crown, which is right here above the 12 o'clock, but of course the 12 o'clock isn't really placed at the traditional 12 o'clock, is a push-pull crown, and it is unsigned, but I mean that kind of just goes with the style here. And then inside, although you can't see it, it's going to be the automatic Seagull ST1701, which is a non-hacking movement. It does have hand winding, and it's automatic, so it has a 40-hour power reserve. It beats at 3 hertz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in terms of its beat rate. The case back is solid, and it does have a nice little bit of etching there to just kind of let you know what's inside. And then if you get to this dial, which I'm just going to try to hold it at a good spot there. Okay. Maybe get a little bit of light on there so you guys can see those numerals reflecting off of something besides the camera lens, which is going to be very black and dark. You're going to see, of course, that signature canted dial with the offset sub-seconds there. So it's definitely very asymmetrical in a lot of ways. Circular brushing on that Salmon dial with applied numerals. And then, of course, a polished handset. And then you're even getting a blued second hand there on that sub-second style. So very cool. 50 meters or 5 atmospheres of water resistance, which is what you might expect for something within the dressy side, normally 30 to 50 meters. So this is going to be nice to be built at least robust enough to make sure that you're getting 50 meters of water resistance. So, you don't have to necessarily worry about this thing. Obviously, you're not going to take it 50 meters under the water, but in terms of splashing, washing your hands, stuff like that, you should be good to go. Now, the end links here, you can see, I should say the lugs are a nice opening and a good size, guys, just 20 millimeters. And they come on this great leather strap with a 2 millimeter taper down to this nice, fully polished, right, matching the case, milled and nicely signed tang buckle. So you got one fixed keeper, one free here, and these are nicely padded. You can see made out of genuine leather. So very cool. Man, just this is a looker. It's very different. Of course, yes, it's paying homage to a very famous watch, but at the end of the day, many people will either one not even know what that watch was, because it's very niche, and it's definitely more of a connoisseur's piece. And then also it's just so outrageously priced that most people will never get to experience it. So why not, especially I think within the space of dress watches, where they're typically pretty simple, right? Just a little 3-hander here, minimal water resistance, it's on a leather strap. Like, why would you? I mean, I guess objectively it's tough to justify paying that much for something so simple and uncomplicated, although they've done some things design wise that do make this piece a bit more complex visually. Honestly, from a functional standpoint, it's not like it's a chronograph, a GMT or something like that, or diver with extra points of tactile engagement with like a dive bezel or anything like that, to where you could try to associate value with. So a lot of it is going to be, of course, the name and the design. And here you're getting the design with just a different name. And it's not an exact copy, just like anything Baltany does. They do skew things and twist things and turn things just a little bit to make them just kind of their own take, but still remaining true to that signature look. So with that said, let's actually get this piece on wrist and see how it wears. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this sits really well, really nicely centered, and you can see it lays quite flat across my wrist. It is a square design, so although it's only a 38 millimeter, and it does have that short 44 millimeter lug to lug, it still is going to wear quite large because of the square shape and also the bezel-less design with that kind of all dial layout. And of course, if I get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, then you're going to get some perspective distortion and it's going to appear even larger than it actually is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low and then just tighten up the frame ever so slightly so you guys can still get a more detailed look while still keeping a truer aspect ratio of how this may lay on your own wrist. So very, very clean, very impressive, right? Even down to the straps, guys. For an OEM strap, I have to say Baltany really over delivers. These are really nice, don't require a lot of break-in, supple, but still feeling quite robust. Look at the hands there, beautifully done. The roundness to that contouring, it's not just pressed out, it is polished and shaped in such a beautiful way. I mean, just for the price point, Baltany, almost scary good, right? Of course, this would be rendered a lot easier to read if it was on the left wrist, but I'm a left-hander, so, well, at least I write with my left hand, so I wear it on the other wrist. So for me, I would have to potentially turn the watch even more to make it more intuitive. which could be a bit of a drawback. Or maybe if you wore it under the wrist like this and popped it up, that could that might be able to resolve some of that. But yeah, I'm digging this piece overall. You know, it's not, I'm you know, obviously not a huge dress watch guy, and this isn't necessarily a design that I've been looking for. But I have to say, seeing it in the metal, I understand obviously what the fuss is about for the design itself. It's pretty captivating. But of course, you know, I'm not one to invest a lot in terms of, dress watches, right? I have some pretty nice ones here and there kind of peppered throughout the collection, but let's put it on this wrist just to give you guys an idea of, here we go. Check that out. So now, instead of having to turn my wrist all the way this way, I can just tell the time by looking down and seeing that. So pretty cool. I dig that. You know, that's what do you guys think? Does that make it any more intuitive to turn your wrist and then see everything there at just a slight turn versus having to really get that wristwatch check posture where you're kind of bringing your fist in closer? Here you can see. Very cool. And I'll just drop that down and we'll get one of these looks too. All right. Yeah. So looking good. But let's go ahead, get this off the wrist, set up for some, although there's no lume, we can do a light transition and closing thoughts. Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and hit the lights here. Okay, so although there's no lume, one thing I always like to work in is a bit of a low light transition, because you're always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal light. Maybe include a little bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But all you're going to see here is actually some pretty impressive, lustrous, high polished finishes, and of course the beautiful little concentric circles in that circular brushing, as well as the especially deep engraving there on that sub-second's hand, just playing with the light in a lot of different ways. And this salmon is, again, surprisingly versatile. Like this, maybe I wouldn't pair it with this strap. Maybe I'd go for like a glossy black alligator or lizard grain or something like that, just to really dress it up a little bit. Maybe a really dark blue that renders almost black in a lot of lights, but then with just a couple of little flashes of reflection, you get those hints of a little midnight blue. That could also be really, really nice. But man, this is one to enjoy. There's not a lot of lume. There's no lume, but there is some reflection. There is some play, and there is just something about this that, I don't know. It's really, again, quite captivating. I just find myself wanting to look at this timepiece. So with all of that said, guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. Really classic proportions, a lot of wrist presence without feeling at all oversized, right? Could it be smaller? Sure, but then it just kind of doesn't really speak to that same aesthetic. So I can appreciate that they went for this level of scale. I think it's a nice little sweet spot. In terms of model variants, it's also available in a white dial option. It's going to be a little bit truer to the original. And in terms of comparable models, you know, obviously compared to an actual VC watch, right, a Vacheron Constantin, this is, you know, it's going to pale in comparison. But just based off of its own individual specs and execution at the price point, you know, what was it, $169? I think many would find, you know, this to be a very strong value, derivative design aside, right? If you can appreciate that, and, you know, and at the end of the day, what is really original and new left under the sun, right? Everything is inspired by something. This is definitely just taking a bit more of a direct reference, and at the price point, I don't think there's any confusion that, you know, this is meant to be a fun, don't take yourself too serious type of watch. You know, if they were selling this for, you know, $800, $900, a couple $1,000, then I would definitely have something to say about the derivative design. But at this price point, I think it's completely fine. So for me, guys, bottom line, at just $169, this classy and well executed homage will definitely scratch the itch for many a watch enthusiast who could never justify trying to, you know, pay into that holy trinity level of Haut horology in terms of spending, right? Especially on such an objectively simple formula, being a dress watch without a lot of you know, water resistance or complications or tricks up its sleeve, powerful loom, you know, 3D chapter rings and complex bevel work, or, you know, some crazy multi-link bracelet. Like, none of that's happening here. So it's fine, I think, you know, for it to kind of be what it is, and it should not cost a lot, and it doesn't, which I think is great. So let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please do hit subscribe to see more videos just like this. Thanks, guys.